Greetings. This is Ernest Mann coming to you from America's Pacific Northwest, reaching out to those who enjoy insights and opinions you just won't hear anywhere else. I've always been a firm believer in observing certain rules, the rules of personal liberty in particular, which means to leave others alone, and conversely, to be left the hell alone. But sometimes there are people who apparently don't know that rule. So you need to educate them to that rule by beating their ass. I can tell you with absolute certainty, no greater lesson is learned if it's carried out properly on the person who has disrespected you or your property being, after all, an extension of yourself, than not to fuck with you or your property. And just so you know, I'm speaking from experience, because once, when I was young and foolish, I did such a thing myself, and I was given such a severe ass whipping, it took me 3 days to find enough of my ass so I could even begin to walk, and that was only with the help of a lot of whiskey. So I learned to respect people's space and property, no matter how great a set of tits it might have. So if you're having a dispute with your neighbor and you've tried many times to have rational dialogue, and you're either simply ignored or he starts hurling insults at you, it's very important to remain calm and not stoop to their level of dysfunction. I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything. I'm saying what you need to do needs to be planned and methodical. Just picture in your mind that you're Christopher Walken. Your insane, dysfunctional neighbor is hurling insults at you. You approach in a non threatening body language manner. You know, slightly smiling, hands raised in a friendly, submissive posture. Then, if that's successful, the moment they relax their guard, kick them as hard as possible in the nuts. You want to plan appropriately and make sure you're wearing your steel-toed boots or shoes for the occasion. Or my personal favorite, wait until they turn around and using a steel rod, a regular old tire iron also works well for this, hit them in the ass as hard as you can. But make sure to aim for the crack of their ass. That way, they won't be able to claim any kind of psychological trauma. And speaking of psychological trauma, here's something I personally witnessed in Scotland a few years ago, and I believe it speaks volumes on the overall superior condition of Scottish society. Compared to the depressing, emasculated mess we find ourselves in here in America today. Two men were having a dispute in the pub I was in at the time, and I didn't catch it from the beginning. And even though I'm Scot-Irish, I wasn't born and raised in the old country. So I was having a wee bit of difficulty understanding what was going on. Apparently, the gist of the story was that one fellow was complaining to the other about shrinkage in the shower. I'll assume you know what that means. And the other man was insulted by this, especially since he had apparently provided the shower to the other fellow in exchange for certain favors. Anyway, a light brawl ensued, and the pub owner, not the least bit upset, as though it were quite routine, told them to take it to the bridge, which was exactly what they and the entire pub did. So the two men both hurriedly walked to this very small stone bridge that was maybe 3 feet high, covering a mud bog. Both men hurling insults while rapidly taking off all their clothes, being closely followed by around 30 people from the pub. The two men proceeded to try to beat the hell out of each other. But due to their level of drunkenness, neither one was really making much progress until one of them somehow was able to get the other one on top of his shoulders and threw him forward off the tiny bridge into the mud, proudly proclaiming, "Suck my ass, Robert Morgan." And all the pub patrons broke into uncontrollable laughter and headed back to the pub. Yes, this truly, actually happened. But what truly amazed me was how the one man who had thrown the other man off the bridge came around the side to the mud bog and pulled the other man out. And I hadn't fully realized until they came walking past me that both of them had to have been in their early 70s. So, what struck in my mind was how, unlike in America, none of the other people witnessing this went crazy. No one pulled out a knife or guns or even called the police. Just two men who were left alone to beat each other's ass, and a community that understands the concept of staying the hell out of other people's business. So, I'm not entirely sure if it's just purely a cultural thing or what, but one thing I do certainly know about my experience in Scotland is they don't have tons of males with all this pent up anger because, as it was patiently explained to me by a middle aged local man, he said, it's much better in the long run to let your true feelings be known to your neighbor, your friend, or family. And if that means someone gets a good ass beating, well, so be it. But then each man knows where the other one stands. It's moments I experienced like that that made me feel very proud to be Scot Irish and to fully understand that sometimes you just got to beat your neighbor's ass. If you found this episode informative or entertaining, please consider subscribing. And if you just want to reach out to me with whatever's on your mind, you can do so by clicking on my contact link in the description below. Until next time, this is Ernest, and that's all I've got for today.